All right, let's go state by state and get into it. First up is Alabama. I actually just took a trip to Georgia and we were staying like somewhere that was right next to the Alabama border. And my mom and I are very much the type that are like, well, since we're here and it's close, we might as well go over. You'll see that a lot on this list. So since we were right next to Alabama, we're like, we might as well go over. So we stopped at DeSoto Falls, and there was another waterfall we stopped at that I can't remember the name. Whatever this waterfall is. So that's all I've seen of Alabama is 2 waterfalls. But I was there, so counts. Next up, Alaska. So my cousin lives in Alaska, and last summer I did a huge road trip where I visited like 4 or 5 states, and Alaska was the first one. That was my first time going. And then she got married this summer, so I flew back to Alaska this summer. Next up, Arizona. I went to Vegas in February, and since I was nearby, I rented a car and drove to the Grand Canyon. So the Grand Canyon is all I've seen of Arizona, at least stopped out to see, but I had to drive like 3 hours to get to it. So yeah, I've been to Arizona. Next up, California. Now, I was actually born and raised in California. I lived there till I was like 18. So I've been all over that state. This is me when I was probably like 10, 11, walking along Santa Cruz Beach. And here's me in like middle school. You can tell it's California because of how dry everything is and how low the river is. Next up, Florida, and this is where I currently live. This is when I first moved to Florida about 7 years ago, so I've been living in Florida for a while now. I did visit Florida a couple months before I moved here, but yeah, I've been living here for months, or years, sorry. Next we have Georgia. This is Savannah. I love Savannah. I try to go to Savannah at least once a year, but I have not been in a while. Ever since moving to Florida, I go to Georgia every now and then because it is the closest state. Like I mentioned earlier, I just got back from a trip to Georgia. I went to Helen, Georgia. This is Anna Ruby Falls and some other places in northern Georgia. And then obviously I drove through Georgia to get to Florida. So a lot of the places on this list are actually from me moving to Florida. And that's where it gets kind of like, does it count? Does it not? Because some of them I did drive through and some of them I stopped through. But yeah, I've been to Georgia a handful of times. Next up is Idaho. So this is really the only time I remember going to Idaho. The cousin that just got married, actually, she and her family lived in Idaho. So I did go visit them a couple times when I was young, but I was really small and don't remember it. But when I was moving from Oregon to Florida, Idaho was the first state we went into, so we stopped at these waterfalls. Fun fact, that is my cat. It was so freaking hot. We moved in August, so she was not staying in the car, so you'll see her pop up. So yeah, I've definitely been to Idaho. Like I said, I don't remember a lot of it, but this is the time I do remember. Okay, this next one is actually one I did not include in the last video because it was one we drove through when moving here, and we were literally in this state for 15 minutes and that's it. But one thing I did when I moved to Florida is every time we entered a new state, we pulled over and I got out and took a picture with the welcome sign. And that state is Iowa. So yes, we literally went through the tiniest corner of Iowa. Other than this picture, we did not get out and stop. We were in and out of the state in, like I said, 15 minutes. So I didn't count it because of that, but technically I have passed through Iowa. There I am posing with the sign. You'll see a lot more pictures like this as we go through. In fact, the next one is a similar story, Kentucky. So obviously it was not safe for me to get out and take a picture, so I had to just take one as we were driving by. Now with Kentucky, we did mainly just drive through it, but we did get out to stop to eat. So that's why I counted it, because we did stop to eat in Kentucky, but that's literally all we did. We drove through, we ate, and then we left. And this next state, same exact scenario, and I don't have any pictures of this one actually, Maryland. So when I first moved to Florida, there was a hurricane that came through, a Category 5, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing this. And I had a cousin that lived in Virginia, so I drove up to Virginia to stay with her during the hurricane. And while we were in Virginia, since there's not much to do in Virginia and we were close by, we went to Washington, D.C. And then since we were in D.C., we were like, well, Maryland's right there. Like, why don't we just hop over and have some lunch so we could say we've been there. So that's what we did. Had lunch, turned around, and went back. So yeah, I haven't really seen much of Maryland at all. We just had lunch there and turned around, but I was there, so it counts. Next up, Massachusetts. Now, I have been to Massachusetts twice. The first time is when I went to the Portugal islands, the Azores. The thing about getting to those islands is there's only 2 airports that fly to them, JFK and Boston, and just due to scheduling, we picked Boston. And on the day we came back, I could not find any flights from Boston that went to Orlando that day, so we just stayed a couple extra days and just hung out in Boston. And then last year I went back again to go to Salem. Next up is Missouri. So this is actually the place that we stayed the longest when we drove from Oregon to Florida. We stopped in St. Louis for a couple days and just kind of took a breather because it's a long drive to go from Oregon to Florida. And this was kind of a good like halfway point. We went to the Arch, and then we also went to the zoo. And I want to say we spent about 3 days here, but St. Louis is the only part of Missouri I've really stopped in. After that, we got back in the car and finished our drive to Florida. Next up is another one that we only drove through, and that's Nebraska. And due to construction, as you can see, I was not able to pull over to get the picture, so I just had to take it as we drove by. And that's all. We just drove through Nebraska. Next up is Nevada. So the picture that was the background of the last video was also Nevada. That was in Vegas, and this is at Red Canyon Park. But that was not my first time in Nevada. I grew up in California, so we would sometimes go to Lake Tahoe, and we'd hop over into Nevada. But I don't really remember those times when I was younger, so I went more recently, and I definitely remember this trip. Next is New York. So I've only been to New York once. I took my mom there for her birthday about 2 years ago, and we were there for about 5 days. We did all the touristy things, obviously, and it was really fun. I'd love to go back again. Next, we have North Carolina. So my cousin right here, she lives in North Carolina, and I have gone up there to visit her twice. One time I drove, one time I flew. So I've really only been in the area that she lives, and that's about it, but I have been twice. And for some reason I took like no pictures both times, so sorry, this is really all you get. Next up is Oregon. If there is a state that I have seen, it's this one right here. Because not only did I live in Oregon for 7 years, and I lived in 2 different parts of Oregon. I lived in Portland, and then I lived near Eugene. But my mom's family is from Oregon, and we drove up to Oregon every single summer. And if somebody got married, we drove up again. Even if you take away the fact that I lived there for 7 years, like if you take those 7 years away, this is by far the state I have visited the most. Like to the point that I'm tired of going, but I always have to go back because there's weddings or funerals, or I just go back to visit, and I'm kind of tired of it. I've been there almost like every single year of my life. I need a break. I've been there so much. But yes, I've definitely been to Oregon. Next, we have South Carolina. The only reason I've actually been to South Carolina is because, like I said, my cousin lives in North Carolina. And the one time I drove, I had to go through South Carolina, obviously. So I stopped at Myrtle Beach. And then I stopped in Charleston along the way as well. Now we're on to Tennessee. So Tennessee is one of those ones that we did stop in for a little bit on the drive to Florida. We stopped here to see Ruby Falls and Rock City. One of those is in Georgia and one of those is in Tennessee. I can't remember which is which, but we stopped there. And then this year, my friend had a birthday girls trip in Nashville, so I went to Nashville as well. Next is Utah. This is another one that I only drove through. I didn't really stop through. I would love to go to Utah though. There's so many things there I want to see, like Zion Park and all of that. But fortunately, only stopped for the picture and then just drove through. I'll go one day. Moving on to Virginia, like I stated earlier, Hurricane Irma came through when I first moved here. I got scared and I evacuated to stay with my cousin who lives in Virginia. And when I tell you, I took like no pictures. And for some reason, the only pictures I did take were at this park. So here's my Virginia picture. All right, next up, going back to the West Coast, Washington. Washington is another place I've been quite a few times because I lived in Oregon, specifically Portland. For those of you that don't know, Portland is like right at the border. So I went in and out of Vancouver a couple times, and then I also went to Seattle about 3 or 4 times. Bellevue, which is right outside of Seattle, would always have a hair show, so I went to that hair show 2 times. And then a cousin of mine who I actually, she's a cousin, but she's one of those cousins that if she walked down the street, I wouldn't be able to recognize her. But I went to her wedding, which was in Washington, and she had the best cake I've ever had in my entire life. And that cake is from a bakery on Bainbridge Island. It's like Blackbird Bakery. And so sometimes I drive up just to get the cake. It's that good. It's that good, okay? And then this picture is from that trip that I mentioned earlier where I went through four states. Four. I went to Alaska and then I flew into Washington. I was in Washington and then I went down to Oregon and California. So Washington, I've really only been in the Seattle area, but I did go through the North Cascade Mountains when I did my last trip there, which is what this is. This is Diablo Lake, I believe. And then I also went to Leavenworth, but yeah, I've definitely been there. And then last on my list, Wyoming. Now this one I did mostly drive through, but we did stop at a rest stop. I think it was a rest stop. Here, wherever this is where we stopped, and there's my cat. So yeah, this is really all I've seen of Wyoming. I was like, is that a giant Abraham Lincoln thing? And then I always was like, where's his body? Like, I was just confused. But yeah, we stopped here. I'm pretty sure this was a rest stop because I remember stopping to go pee. And yeah, that's really all I've seen of Wyoming. So that's all of them. Those are the states I've been to. I think that's all. I don't think I'm forgetting any. If I am forgetting something, it's something I just like barely went through. So yeah, the ones I took on my road trip to get here, most of those I was just passing through, but I have been trying to travel a lot and would like to go to all 50 one day. I'm almost halfway there. So, and the ones I've only driven through, I'll try to go back and like actually see something. But yeah, those are the states I've been to.